All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get after it. How y'all doing today? My name is Kensley Dugan, or Coach Dugan from the Theo Group, or better yet known as TTG. What we offer is financial consulting, financial coaching. We help work through all financial needs as well as full service insurance carrier or shop. We're here to fulfill your needs, man. You come to us, we'll do our best to make sure that your job is fulfilled or whatever your needs are fulfilled. All right, so today what we got debt. We're going to talk about debt management. We're going to talk about what is the need to take to become debt free. What do you need to do? How do you need to attack it? How do you need to uh, get to the best place to where you're managing your debt and debt is not managing you? What are we going to do today? We're going to cover a few things, right? We're going to cover one, what is debt? We're going to talk about good debt versus bad debt. We're also going to look at how to best prioritize your debt so you can pay it off eventually and live debt free. Um, Having that feeling of becoming debt free and not having to owe any money to anyone, especially credit card institutions. Oh my God, this is such a great feeling. And that's something that you want to really get to. How do you do it though? You got to know what to do as far as the prioritizing your debt. What is a debt manager, right? Are you a debt manager or are you a debt collector, right? I want to talk about managing debt and not letting debt manage you pretty much, okay? And then to round it out, we're going to talk about the correct use of using a credit card, how to best use it. You know, should you use it up to the limit? Should you have a rolling balance? What's the best way to go about doing this? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to unpack that. And then lastly, we're going to talk about student loans. All right. But the biggest thing about today's presentation is talking about debt, right? How to best get out of it, what's important about it, how to make it the lowest thing as far as the lowest segment of your balance sheet. We want to make sure that you're able to control it and you're able to move forward in life and not be stressed out about how much money you owe. All right. So I wanted to see what the general definition of debt is. And debt is something, usually money, borrowed by one party from another. Debt is used by many corporations and individuals to make large purchases that they cannot afford under normal circumstances. Highlight that. Debt arrangement gives the borrowing party permission to borrow money under the condition that it is to be paid back at a later date, usually with interest. So let's talk about that, right? And I said highlight a certain portion of it, which is debt is usually used by corporations or individuals to make a large purchase that they cannot afford under normal circumstances. Now, that's true for businesses. That's also true for individuals as well. But that's where it becomes a slippery slope for individuals because you get to a place where you feel like I'm going to use my credit card to make this large purchase and then I'm going to pay it back at a certain point in time. Now, the problem is that most people don't pay it back and they normally don't pay it back on time. So how do you navigate that? How do you make sure that that doesn't happen to you? Well, one, you make sure that you never use more than what's in your bank account. And what I mean by that is if you have $3,000 in your bank account and you want to make a purchase, you better believe that purchase better not be anywhere close to 3,000. I tell my clients don't go anywhere between 50 to 75%, and that'll land you anywhere between 1,500 or even 2,000 because you could now turn around and make a payment for that $1,500 or that $2,000 that you just spent on your credit card. So you don't want to make this large purchase if you can, or if you can avoid it. Now, yes, you'll use that. This is right for large purchases like cars, homes, things of that nature. Those are larger purchases that will take time. But there are other strategies that can be put in place so you don't have to go into debt to pay for these purchases. Another thing to highlight is be paid back later, usually with interest. And as you already know, the highest interest you're going to receive is from a credit card institution. And that's going to be anywhere between 15 as high as 29%. So, depending on your FICO score, depending on how good you are with credit card management, will determine how much interest you're going to have to pay back. Now, that the interest is the thing that eats away at your repayment, right? Or it just adds to your principal. Your principal balance being the original purchase, that 1,000, 2,000, whatever that purchase may be, that's the original balance, right? And that's the principal. But now the interest is tacked on to the principal. Now, depending on what that interest rate is, you want to make sure that you're paying that back as feverishly as possible, because that interest is going to be added to the principal every single time. So it's very important to make sure that one, you have the best interest rate that's possible based upon your FICO score or your credit score. And also, you're paying that back as soon as you can. So that's one thing to really consider as you're looking at debt, right? So let's talk about the different types of debts. There's two types, right? There's good debt and there is bad debt. Good debt is things that will help increase your net worth, right? And that's your home, even a car. Even though it's a depreciating asset, once you pay that car off, it sits on the asset column of your balance sheet. But it is, yes, depreciating. Um, uh, Now let's talk about bad debt. Bad debt involves borrowing money to purchase things like depreciating assets for personal consumption. Now, the things about that bad debt is more so, and you'll find credit cards in that column. You'll find payday loans in that column. But it's very good to know the difference between the two, because that will help you when you're making these purchases to see and really make that decision worthwhile to say, okay, how much good debt am I trying to put on my books, and how much bad debt am I trying to take off of my books or even put on my books? Unfortunately, we can't avoid it. Once again, the biggest downfall is that people will get into more so of a credit card debt. They'll get it into personal loan debt, medical debt. So certain things are unavoidable, but these are the things that are, and it's very good to know exactly what good debt is versus bad debt. As I mentioned before, a mortgage is good debt, right? Because as you're paying it off, you have tax breaks as well as you are building up your net worth. So it sits on that column. Student loans, right? Even though everyone will say, yeah, I hate student loans, but at the same token, student loans is something that helps you out in the sense that you went to school, you got an education. Now you're taking that education, you're taking that experience, being taught to do either skill or profession, and that skill and profession is now going to yield you enough money to pay off this debt, to pay off the student loan. So you really invested into yourself. So I look at that similar to like a business loan, right? You're purchasing the education or the things that you need that will help you fulfill your goal to get into whatever career field. And that career field is going to now kick off the money, right? To pay everything off. So think about that, right? So that in a sense is good debt. And yes, you should pay it off because you invested in yourself. Now that you are making the money, go ahead and pay that off, but you pay that off in time. There's a strategy behind it. I can help you walk through that strategy, but you pay that off in time. And then lastly, small business loans. And as I mentioned, if you want to expand or if you want to use get a line of credit so you can put that into marketing, so you could buy more inventory, so you could start to have more SKUs or sell more products, whatever it may be, whatever your business is. Business debt is not bad, so don't look at that. That's good debt to have. Now, versus bad debt, where I mentioned before, and I mentioned this several times, which is the credit card debt. Credit card debt, as I said, is absolute worst. You have to know how to use a credit card correctly, and we'll talk about that later in the broadcast. But for right now, credit card debt is the debt that you want to avoid at any cost. I'm saying to use the credit card, but use it responsibly to where you're paying it off on an ongoing basis. Then we have payday loans. Those you should stay away from, period, right? Just stay away from them. I'm not even going to dive into why. Just stay away from them. The interest rates on those are ridiculous, and you shouldn't even consider that if you are in need of money. Car loans. Said a car is an asset once you pay it off, but 9 times out of 10, most people will pay into the car and either sell the car at a very low cost where they're not really receiving or recouping the money that they put into it, and the others are not, and at the end of the day, the loan company is going to win with a car loan, right? Unless you are not financing. If you're taking out a lease and you're leasing a car, well, at least you're getting a brand new car every year or so. So it totally depends, but a car loan is looked at as bad asset because you'll never receive this money again. You'll never get this money back. For those individuals who like souping up their cars and putting, tinted windows, rims, the latest and greatest on their cars, you're legit wasting money. You're not getting that money back. It's not going to resell because you have tinted windows on it. It's not going to resell because you got low profile tires on it. It's not going to increase the car value by no means. So when you're looking at bad debt, keep that in mind. Now, in order for us to get out of debt, you have to first prioritize debt. So what I tell most people to do is take out a piece of paper and let's list out all your debt. Once you list out all your debt and it's in front of you, then you'll understand what needs to be paid off first. And there's a few things that are factored in. The total balance, the interest rates that are associated with it, or the APRs, the annual percentage rate, how soon certain things need to be paid off, the monthly payments for some, and then lastly, the minimum amount that's due. So one of the things that I like to tell people is 9 times out of 10, credit card debt will be one of the things that are the highest on someone's priority list. So go ahead and attack that first. Credit cards are one of the things that most people hate paying off, and unfortunately, they're there. So I always tell people that take care of your credit cards first, because that's one less bill that you have to pay on a month-to-month basis. You don't want to have a rolling balance. You want to pay that off. You want to use it for your expenses and pay them off immediately. So it shouldn't be an ongoing rolling balance. You should always operate at zero. But if you do have debt, and credit card debt is one of the things that are weighing you down, you want to have that as your highest priority to pay down first, to pay down and pay off. Then any type of personal loans, medical loans, any type of loans that you have out there when it comes down to like the personal realm, you want to pay those off as well. Next will be cars, a car loan. You want to pay that off as fast as possible because, as I said, that interest rate is just adding to the principal. If you don't take care of the principal, the majority of that money is going to now go to the financing institution, and that's how they stay in business. They live off of the interest. So if you have it to pay it off and to pay it off quickly, you want to get into a strategy to pay that car off as fast as you can. Student loans, as I said, now we started to cross over into the good debt category as far as to prioritize. Now, as I said, student loans, you want to make sure that you are paying it back, but you want to make sure that you took care of yourself first. What I meant by that is you have the proper savings in place. You have the proper retirement in place, proper investments in place. the proper protection in place. And then you get to a point where you're like, okay, I do have extra access to more resources. Now I could take that money and now start making higher payments to my student loans. And then lastly, a house, same situation, same rule apply. Once you get to that place where money is flowing in, where you can make a double payment to your mortgage or you can make an extra payment to your mortgage, go for it. Because at the end of the day, you're going to own this asset and you'll be able to sell this asset for hopefully a higher value at the time. But those are some things to use to prioritize your debt. It's very important when it comes down to paying your debt off, making sure you know where to start first. Right, and then that will now trickle over to the next debt that you may have. Now, there's two ways of paying it off. All right, we have the debt snowball, and then we have debt avalanche. Right, so the debt snowball. Let's talk about that. The debt snowball is pretty much paying off the lowest balance off first. Right, once you pay that lowest balance off, you move on to the next lowest balance, and then you take the money that you're paying into the first card, you move it into the second card, and then once that second card is paid off, those two payments, you now combine it and you make large payments to the large account. So for instance, for this example, we got Amex at 10,000. We have Visa at 3,000, and we have a Macy's card at 5,000. So if you're using the debt snowball technique, you want to start with the Visa $3,000 card first. Once that's paid off, you move over to the Macy's $5,000 card. You take the extra that you've been paying into the Visa, you apply that to the Macy's card. And then lastly, once the Macy's card is paid off, you take the money that you was putting into the Visa and the Macy's card, and then you now apply that to your Amex. Now, keep in mind, you're also always paying the lowest balance or the minimum balance to all the cards. You want to make sure that every time you're not skipping a payment, right? You're making sure you're still paying the minimum balance, but the excess will go to that lowest card or that lowest balance. So that'll be the debt snowball strategy. The debt avalanche strategy, the only thing that's different is that we're trying to pay off the card that has the highest interest first. So that's the difference. There's no other difference outside of that. We're not focusing on balance, but on the avalanche, we're focusing on the interest. So in this example, being that the Amex has the highest interest rate, we're going to start with that one first. So we're going to start with the Amex. Once we pay that down, we're going to now move on to the Visa that's at the 19% APR. So that extra money that was going towards the Amex now will go towards the Visa, and then it will continue to the Macy's card. As I mentioned, you are still paying the minimum balance for the other two cards as you're putting extra towards the one with the highest APR. So we're going to focus on APR with the Avalanche, and we're going to focus on the lowest balance with the snowball. Believe it or not, both works. That's the beauty of it. The fact that you're paying it back will show you that they both work. They both work at pretty, I wouldn't say at the same rate. It definitely depends because you're not getting charged as high as the APR with the Avalanche, but it totally depends on you, depends on your style, depends on the extra resources that you have to pay it back. So just keep that in mind. All right, some check-in questions. I'm going to stop sharing for a second to see who is in the chat. Okay. All right. So this, for your own personal gain, you want to have, you want to ask yourself these few things, right? What is debt? Do you know what your total debt balance is? How much do you owe? What are the two types of debt? We just went over them, right? There's good debt and bad debt. What debt should you pay off first? How do you prioritize your debt? All right, paying off a credit card with the highest interest first and moving on to the second highest interest card is called what? All right, moving on. So let's talk about debt management tools. So as I mentioned before, there are other resources and there are a ton of resources out there for you. You just have to go out there and find it. Um, some of the ones I have listed here are Telly, Debt, Debt Book, Mint, Unbury Me, or Unbury.me, and then also a financial coach. So when you're looking at your total debt and is in front of you and you're freaking out and you're like, I don't know what to do, where to go, who to talk to, the best thing to do is go online and try to find some of these debt management tools. They're all free. You don't have to pay anything for them. Go ahead and use them. Try them. If one doesn't work, try another one. Because the biggest thing is not knowing where to start, right? Working with a financial coach, yes, that's one of the best ways to start because these are the things that we know. We know exactly where to start. We know exactly how to prioritize. We know exactly how to come up with a strategy based upon your income and resources to get you to your goals, which is to become debt free. And we also know how to use these tools. I'm going to show you how to use the unbury.me tool to see exactly what you need to do to make sure you become debt free. It shows you how much you need to make towards the payments. It shows you how much to go towards the other cards as you continue. But these are some of the tools and softwares that's out there that's available to you that are, that are tools that are meant to help you. But you got to take advantage of it. You have to make sure that this is something that you're serious about and you're willing and accepting of using these other tools. So just to take a look at it, this is the when you go into unbury.me, this is the home screen and this is what it looks like. All right. So what you want to do is, let me start this up. You want to start by clicking add loan. So in this example, I'm going to use 3 credit cards. This one, I'm going to start with a Discover card at $10,000, an 18% interest rate, and a minimum payment of $350. The second card is going to be a Capital One card, right? And this Capital One card, we're going to have an interest. I'm sorry, we're going to have a balance of 5,000, an interest of 19%, and then a monthly payment of $250 per month. The third card we want to use an Amex. Now this Amex has I think about $2,500 on this card with a pretty high interest rate of 22% and a monthly minimum payment of $275. So this is showing us that we have a total principal of 17,500. This will be paid off in 2 years. You'll pay 3,500 to interest, and you have an annual average rate of 18.6%. The tabs will talk about principal remaining, total interest paid, monthly payments, and then percentage towards principal. If you want to see exactly how much to pay on what given month and how much of that goes towards principal and how much remaining towards principal, how much is the total interest paid, you want to hit that little eye icon and it'll help you out in that regard. Now, on the left side, you can see that we have a monthly payment of $875, but you could toggle that up or down if you have extra money that you want to put towards this, put towards your debt. Now, let's say you had an additional $500 that you have, and you want to use the debt snowball strategy. So remember, paying the lowest balance off first. So you want to go to monthly payments, and it'll show you exactly what you need to do and how we're going to attack the Amex first because that's the lowest balance. Yes, it has the highest interest, but we're using the snowball strategy. So looking at the lowest balance, it's going to take you to paying that off first. And then once you're done paying that, as you see, Amex is at zero. That additional now will move to the Capital One and maintaining the minimum balance with the Discover. And then lastly, we'll move over to Discover, putting in $1,300 per month towards this Discover card, and you'll be debt free in a year using that strategy. Now, same strategy applies, same time applies, right? But now we're going to use the Avalanche. The Avalanche will start with the Discover card first. Then we're going to now I'm sorry, we're going to start with the Amex first, being at that's the highest interest rate. And then same rules apply. You continue to move on as you pay everything off. Now, once you're done, make sure you create an account or log in so you can have this information saved. I will suggest you put it in a PDF and save it. That way, you'll be able to hold on to this data and use it at a later time. This is a great tool. As I said, this is unbury.me, and it helps you really figure out how to pay off your credit card debt. But the biggest thing that you need to understand is that you cannot add anything else to this principle. So you're pretty much taking your cards out of your wallet and not using them anymore up until this gets to a zero balance. That's pretty much the game plan. But you have to commit to it and you have to do it. All right. So how to use a credit card more efficiently and effectively so you don't get in this problem again. So we now have prioritized our debt. We came up with a strategy to pay it off. Now your debt is paid off. What are your principles? What are the rules of engagement when you're dealing with your credit cards? What do you need to make sure that you're doing on a day-to-day basis to not be in that position as you once was before? All right. You want to make sure, as I said earlier, your available credit card balance is directly reflective of what's in your checking account, not your savings, your checking account, because that's a fluid account, right? Meaning that money goes in, money goes out, but it's directly correlated to your checking account. So, for example, if I have $10,000 in checking on a month-to-month basis, I'm only going to use 5,000 to 7,000 maximum, and I'm going to pay it off at the end of the month, or a little tidbit, before the interest rate is applied. So the rule of thumb is 50% of what's in my checking account to 75%, that's what's in my checking account, will be used on this card, period, and then paid off before the interest rate is applied. So what I normally do is I'll pay it off every week. I do know exactly when my interest rate is applied to my card, and it's not on the due date. So don't think that when the payment is due, that's when they apply interest. That's false. They apply interest a few days before the due date. So just keep that in the back of your mind. You want to make sure that you have a rolling balance of zero. That helps with credit, your credit score. That helps with your bills. Also, if you have a credit card that's giving you points and offering you points, now you're able to receive these points and these perks, pay off your bills on time, and then eventually build up enough perks and points where you're staying in hotels for free, you're flying for free, you're getting, whatever the perks of that credit card, you're getting that, as well as not paying them any additional money outside of you just paying off the money that you used, right? So that's the best way you want to go. And you want to really attack credit cards usage. And then, as I said, lastly, you want to pay it off before that APR is applied. And then we're going to round it out with a student loan debt. That's the kind of ease you're paying with that. Student loans, there's two types. There's federal and then private. The biggest thing you want to do is consolidate, so you can have one interest that's applied to the whole loan. If you do have a few loans that have lower interest, they will help bring down the higher interest loans. So you'll have that one consistent interest rate applied to all loans. And also you want to go on set up a auto draft, and that'll take it down an additional 0.25% if it's drafted automatically every month, which I suggest because once you set it and forget it, before you know it, your balance will be so far down you didn't even see it coming. So that's one thing to I recommend doing. It's easy, it's simple. You don't have to really worry about anything else, and it's very consistent. And lastly, work with a professional. Working with someone like myself will help navigate whether it's time to start paying back these loans, how aggressively to pay these loans back, how frequently to pay them back. If you're in one of the situations where you want to just get rid of all of your student loan debt and you have a lump sum come in, let's go ahead and take care of it. Get that debt off your books, right? You want to operate to where you have as little debt as possible. All right. So I'm gonna round it up and go into Q&A session. Not too sure how many people were able to join in and to come into the chat. All right, cool. But nonetheless, I'll definitely say I'm gonna leave my contact information up here for those of you who like to have a conversation. All right, so we have no questions. Please email me if you have any questions or you want further information. I love the fact that I have opportunity to give out this financial knowledge, this financial education. Please take note, man. It's here. It's here for you. Take care.